What kind of life would be possible if every meal had to be hunted on a mountainside? Every step carried the risk of a fall, and the distance between survival and starvation could stretch across hundreds of square kilometers. For the snow leopard, this is not a temporary hardship. It is home, high above the forests and grasslands of Central Asia, where the air is thin and winter can turn an entire mountainside into a frozen wall. A solitary cat moves almost invisibly through broken rock. Its pale coat blends into stone and snow. Its enormous paws spread its weight across deep snow. Its long tail can wrap around its body for warmth, while also acting as a counterweight when the animal moves across steep terrain. Everything about the snow leopard looks perfectly designed for this world. And that is what makes its existence so difficult to understand. Because adaptation does not make life easy. It only makes survival possible. A snow leopard can spend much of its life alone, moving through a landscape where prey may be scattered across enormous distances. In places where food is scarce, an individual may require a home range covering hundreds of square kilometers, sometimes more than 1,000. There is no herd to protect it, no pack to help bring down prey, no permanent shelter waiting at the end of the day. There is only the mountain, and somewhere within it, there must be enough food to keep one animal alive. That means every advantage the snow leopard possesses comes with a price. The thick fur keeps out the cold, but it must be carried through every climb. The powerful hind legs can launch the cat across astonishing gaps, but a missed landing on a cliff does not forgive mistakes. The camouflage can make the animal almost impossible to see, but being difficult to find also means living in a world where individuals rarely encounter one another. Even reproduction demands separation, travel, and years of investment in offspring. The snow leopard is often described as a master of the mountains. But mastery is not the same as comfort. It means surviving in a place that offers almost nothing freely. Before a snow leopard becomes the ghost of the mountains, it begins life as something far more vulnerable. A newborn cub cannot climb cliffs. It cannot hunt. It cannot regulate the dangers of the high mountains on its own. It cannot even see the world around it. After a gestation of roughly 3 months, a female gives birth, usually in a sheltered den during the warmer part of the year. The cubs are born small and helpless, with their eyes remaining closed for about the first week. Outside the den, the mountains continue without pause. Wind moves across the slopes. Wild sheep and goats climb through the rocks. Ravens and vultures search the landscape. And somewhere nearby, the mother must find enough food to keep herself alive while producing enough milk to sustain her young. For the cubs, the first stage of survival is therefore completely dependent on one animal: their mother. She has no partner permanently sharing the burden. The male and female may come together during the mating period, but the mother raises the cubs alone. Every journey she makes away from the den carries a calculation. Leave too long, and the cubs remain without protection. Stay too close, and there may not be enough food. The den itself is not a guarantee of safety. It is simply a place where the cubs have a chance. For several weeks, their entire world is darkness, stone, warmth, and the sounds of the mountain beyond the entrance. Then, slowly, the world opens. Eyes begin to function. Bodies strengthen. The cubs begin to move. At around 2 months, they can begin eating solid food. By roughly 3 months, they start following their mother and learning behaviors that will eventually determine whether they survive independently. But childhood does not remove the danger. It introduces new forms of it. Because now the cubs must leave the den. They must walk over ground that can drop away beneath their feet. They must remain close enough to their mother to learn from her, but far enough away to begin discovering the landscape themselves. The mountain is no longer something outside the den. A cub that cannot eventually keep pace with its mother cannot remain dependent forever. The protection of childhood has an expiration date. The mountain will eventually demand independence. And when that moment comes, the cub will have to face the same brutal equation that governs every adult snow leopard. Find food. Avoid danger. Keep moving. Survive. You have to learn the shape of the land. Not just where the cliffs are, but where the cliffs lead. You have to recognize the narrow routes between rock faces, the ridge lines that can be followed safely, and the slopes where prey animals are likely to appear. You have to understand the behavior of animals that are stronger than you are. And eventually, you have to learn how to kill one. A snow leopard is built for ambush rather than prolonged pursuit. Its powerful hind legs allow it to launch across steep terrain, while its large paws help distribute its weight across snow. Its camouflage allows the body to disappear against the broken pattern of rock and snow. A mother can lead her cubs toward prey. She can expose them to the movements of wild sheep and goats. She can allow them to watch, but watching is not the same as knowing what to do. A successful hunt may begin long before the prey realizes a predator is nearby. The young cat must learn to remain hidden. It must judge distance. It must understand the slope, and when the moment comes, it must commit. A blue sheep standing on a ledge may look like food, but between predator and prey can be a maze of rock, loose gravel, snow, and sudden drops. One wrong movement can destroy the attack, and unlike a hunt on flat ground, the mountain itself becomes part of the contest. The prey knows how to climb. It has spent its entire life navigating the same terrain. The young snow leopard is learning. The prey is not. This is why the relationship between mother and cub matters so much. For nearly 2 years, a young snow leopard can remain connected to its mother before dispersing into an independent life. That period is not simply childhood. It is preparation. The cub is learning where to move, what to hunt, how to behave around danger, how to use the landscape, how to exist without being seen, and eventually, how to live without its mother. There is a strange cruelty in that lesson. The better the mother prepares the cub, the sooner the cub must leave her. The young snow leopard cannot remain a child in a landscape this demanding. Independence is not a choice. It is the condition of survival. Now imagine the ordinary day of an adult snow leopard. There is no dramatic chase, no spectacular attack, no audience, only movement. You move through a territory that may cover hundreds of square kilometers. You leave scent marks and other signs along the landscape. You travel ridgelines and the bases of cliffs. You search, you wait, you listen, and most importantly, you calculate energy. Because in a world where prey is scattered, wasting energy can be almost as dangerous as going hungry. The snow leopard's primary prey varies across its range, but wild sheep and goats are especially important. Blue sheep, ibex, and argali are among the major prey animals on which different populations depend. Smaller animals such as marmots, hares, and birds may also become food when opportunities arise. But these prey animals do not simply stand still. They move through the same mountains. They climb. They graze. They disappear around ridges. And sometimes, they are simply too far away. A snow leopard may travel enormous distances searching for the right opportunity. In some landscapes, researchers have documented individuals moving across extraordinary stretches of terrain. One tracked cat in Mongolia traveled roughly 27 miles across open desert in a single night. That is not a journey undertaken for adventure. It is the geography of hunger. A large kill can feed a snow leopard for several days. The cat may remain near the carcass, returning repeatedly to eat, while defending the meal from scavengers, such as ravens and vultures. Large prey may take 3 or 4 days to consume, and researchers have found that solitary snow leopards may make a large kill roughly every 8 to 10 days on average. That means a successful hunt is precious. There may be no replacement waiting nearby. So the snow leopard eats carefully. It rests. It returns. It watches. Then eventually, the carcass is gone, and the search begins again. There is no stockpile, no refrigerator, no certainty that the next hunt will succeed. This is the hidden cost of being a predator in a barren landscape. Every meal has to be earned, and the larger the prey, the greater the risk involved in obtaining it. Yet for a brief moment, the mountain can become strangely beautiful. At dawn, the first light reaches the highest ridges. The snow turns pale gold. The wind softens. A snow leopard pauses above a valley, its tail curling around its body as it watches wild sheep moving far below. For a few seconds, nothing appears to be wrong. The animal is exactly where it belongs. Perfectly camouflaged, perfectly adapted, almost untouchable. Then the wind changes. The herd disappears behind the rocks. The snow leopard lowers its head. And the search begins again. Snow leopards generally prefer wild prey, but they sometimes kill domestic animals, such as sheep, goats, horses, cattle, camels, and young yaks. In some areas, livestock losses can become a serious economic burden for herding communities. From the snow leopard's perspective, a domestic animal may be an unusually accessible source of food. From the herder's perspective, it may represent income, food, transportation, or the survival of a household. The conflict is not imaginary, and neither side can simply disappear. When livestock is killed, some people retaliate by killing the predator responsible. In certain areas, retribution killing has become one of the major threats facing snow leopards. But livestock conflict is only one part of the problem. The wild prey themselves can decline. Illegal hunting removes animals that snow leopards depend on. Livestock grazing can increase competition for vegetation. As wild sheep and goats become harder to find, the predator must travel farther. The farther it travels, the more energy it spends. The more desperate the search becomes, the greater the possibility of encountering livestock. And the cycle begins again. Then there is habitat fragmentation. A snow leopard does not need a small patch of wilderness. It needs a connected mountain landscape. Mining and poorly planned infrastructure can divide that landscape, while development can increase human access into areas that were previously difficult to reach. Climate change adds another layer. The mountains are warming. The effects do not stop with the snow leopard. Temperature influences vegetation, water, wild prey, livestock, and the timing of ecological processes across the landscape. The result is not necessarily one sudden disaster. It can be a gradual rearrangement of the world the cat depends upon. A valley changes. A prey population shifts. A grazing pattern expands. A water source becomes less reliable. And an animal that has evolved to survive one of the harshest environments on Earth is forced to adapt to a landscape that itself is changing. The snow leopard is built for difficulty. But difficulty has limits. There is another reason the snow leopard matters. It is not simply a beautiful animal living somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary human life. It is a predator at the top of a mountain food web. That position gives the animal a role far larger than its numbers might suggest. A snow leopard depends on healthy populations of wild prey, and those prey depend on functioning mountain ecosystems. When wild sheep and goats decline, the snow leopard loses more than food. It loses part of the ecological foundation that makes its habitat suitable in the first place. This is why protecting the cat cannot mean protecting the cat alone. A landscape without enough wild prey cannot sustain a healthy snow leopard population. A landscape broken into isolated fragments can make movement and reproduction more difficult. And a landscape where people and livestock increasingly compete with wild animals creates conflict at the very boundaries where predators and humans meet. The snow leopard therefore becomes a kind of ecological messenger. Its presence suggests that enough of the mountain food web remains intact to support one of its most demanding predators. But the irony is difficult to ignore. The animal most dependent on the health of this ecosystem is also one of the animals most vulnerable to changes within it. A snow leopard can survive extreme cold. It can navigate steep slopes. It can cross enormous distances. It can hunt prey several times its own weight. But none of those adaptations can manufacture a wild sheep population where hunting has removed one. The snow leopard's strength has always been its ability to live within limits that would defeat most animals. But its survival still depends on something outside its own body. A functioning mountain ecosystem. That is the real cost of existing here. The species is currently classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, and estimates of the wild population remain uncertain because the animal is extremely difficult to detect and count across its vast, rugged range. The Snow Leopard Trust gives a broad estimate of roughly 3,920 to 6,390 individuals in the wild. That uncertainty matters. A creature that spends its life alone, moves across enormous territories, and blends into mountainsides is extraordinarily difficult to count. But uncertainty does not mean there is no danger. Snow leopards occupy a range extending across 12 countries in Central Asia, covering roughly 2 million square kilometers. Yet populations have disappeared from some places where they once occurred, while conservation work has helped improve populations in certain areas. The threats are also connected. Poaching can remove snow leopards directly. Illegal hunting can remove their prey. Climate change can intensify pressure across the entire system. No single problem explains the animal's future. That is what makes the situation so difficult. And yet, there is no reason to pretend the story has already been decided. Across the snow leopard's range, conservation programs are working with communities, monitoring wildlife, improving livestock protection, studying prey populations, and gathering information about animals that spend most of their lives beyond human observation. In the Himalayas, snow leopards commonly occur at elevations of roughly 3,000 to 5,400 meters. In Mongolia and parts of Russia, they can live at considerably lower elevations. In one region, blue sheep may dominate the diet. In another, ibex or argali may be more important. In Pakistan, the species occurs in the Hindu Kush and Karakoram mountains, including parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Gilgit-Baltistan, and Azad Kashmir. Here, the animal moves through some of the most dramatic terrain on the planet. Snow leopards are elusive and generally solitary, with activity often concentrated around dawn and dusk. They communicate through scent markings and other signs rather than maintaining constant physical contact with one another. The result is an animal that seems almost designed to vanish. And perhaps that is why the snow leopard can survive in places where few large predators could. But there is a final irony. The more isolated and inaccessible the landscape becomes, the harder the animal is to study. A creature can be present in a mountain range without being visible. It can be alive without being noticed, and it can decline long before most people realize anything has changed. Perhaps the hardest thing to understand about the snow leopard is that it was never built for an easy life. Its entire body is a response to hardship. The broad paws, the thick fur, the powerful hind legs, the long balancing tail, the camouflage, the solitary existence, the ability to travel enormous distances in search of prey. None of these features make the mountains gentle. They make the animal capable of enduring them. The snow leopard is not a symbol because its life is easy. It is a symbol because its life is almost impossibly demanding. Every day it moves through a world that offers little food, little shelter, and very little room for error. And still, it climbs. Still, it searches. Still, somewhere beyond the last road, above the last village, a pale shape moves silently across the mountain. And the animal that has learned, against extraordinary odds, how to remain part of it. That is the brutal life of a snow leopard. Not a life without beauty, not a life without strength, but a life in which survival is never something the mountain gives away. It must be earned, again, and again, and again, and again.